Have you ever wondered what happened to those one-of-a-kind engines created and owned by the Soviet Union? These 12 Soviet-era V8 engines might feel like relics of the past, but their strength and performance have stood the test of time. Yes, many of them are still running today, and some are even dominating the engine market. Let's see 12 of the most reliable Soviet-era engines that are still in existence. The ZIL 111 was a luxury limousine built for the Soviet elite, and for its use, it definitely needed an engine that could handle everything. The 5.98-liter V8 engine delivered 200 horsepower at 4,000 RPM and produced 412 Nm of torque, making it the perfect engine for the vehicle to run smoothly, even in tough conditions. But that wasn't exactly why the ZIL 111 V8 engine was a big deal. You see, back then, owning a vehicle was one thing, having a reliable vehicle was another. The Soviet Union had harsh winters, rough roads, and long distances to cover, so this engine had to be tough. Its design concept was pretty simple. Fewer moving parts meant fewer things could go wrong, making it easier to maintain and repair. As a result, the engine could handle long journeys or grand parades without breaking down. The ZIL 111 V8 was built for top officials, including government leaders and heads of state. Vehicles like the ZIL 111G and its convertible version were symbols of power and wealth. The ZIL 130 V8 engine was an absolute beast when it came out in the 1960s. It powered one of the Soviet Union's most dependable trucks, the ZIL 130, the largest truck you'd often see in Soviet-era movies. The 6.0-liter V8 could easily produce around 150 horsepower to drive the vehicle. What made it even more impressive, aside from its 402 Nm of torque, was how tough it was, making it perfect for heavy-duty work in all kinds of conditions. No wonder we still see it today, though not in Soviet trucks. One of the coolest things about this engine was how well it handled fuel. Its 7.5:1 compression ratio meant it could run on low-octane gasoline, which was a big deal back then. Fuel quality wasn't always the best, but this engine didn't quite care. Let's talk durability for a sec. With proper maintenance, this engine could easily last over 400,000 kilometers. That's thanks to its rugged build, including the cast iron block and chrome-coated compression rings that kept it running smoothly. Even if anything was ice cold, the ZIL 130 engine would still ride or drive. Its simple design also made repairs easy. No need for fancy tools or a state-of-the-art garage to fix it. That's probably why it was so popular for military use and in remote areas back in the day. The KAMAZ 740 V8 engine, built in the 1970s to power the heavy-duty KAMAZ trucks, was an 11.7-liter powerhouse that delivered between 210 and 260 horsepower, with torque ranging from 700 to 785 Nm. Believe me, it had a list of specs that hit right at the heart of the Soviets. For starters, let's just say that it was built to last. The cast iron cylinder block was solid enough to take a beating, and the wet sleeve cylinder design made it easier to maintain. When you're dealing with events like the Siberian blizzards or the sweltering heat of Central Asia, you'd definitely consider these qualities a treasure. Then, the engine was a good fuel manager, and not just by consumption rate, but also by fuel quality. No need for any fuel treatment, nor do you have to panic over engine knocks. With proper maintenance, the engine could easily reach 600,000 kilometers, and there are stories of some going well past 700,000. Talk about an engine that offered reliability and practicality like the perfect smoothie. Even today, you'll find some of these engines still running, a testament to how well they were built. No need to be flashy, just simple, durable, and, well, perfect. Introduced in the late 1970s, the Ural 4320 earned a reputation as a reliable, all-terrain beast, and much of that came down to one thing: its engine. At the heart of the Ural 4320 was the ZIL 375 YAMS V8 engine. This 6.0-liter, 5,950cc powerhouse produced about 150 horsepower and around 400 Nm of torque. It wasn't designed to break speed records, but as I mentioned, it was built to be a super reliable, all-terrain machine. One of the interesting qualities of this engine was its durability. It could last anywhere from 500,000 to 600,000 kilometers. That's roughly 310,000 to 373,000 miles. For military missions or remote operations, where breakdown could mean serious trouble, that level of reliability wasn't just important, it was mandatory. Even now, decades later, you'll still find the Ural 4320 performing well in hard-to-reach places where other vehicles might give up. Don't even think about bringing a Toyota pickup truck to these terrains. So trust me when I say the Ural 4320 V8 was just the perfect rugged engine for rugged places. The Gaz-66, often nicknamed the Russian all-terrain truck, earned its reputation as a tough and dependable machine. First introduced in 1964, it quickly became a favorite for both military and civilian use. Not just because of its efficiency, but also thanks to its early V8 engine. This 5.5-liter V8 engine produced around 120 horsepower with about 300 Newton-meters of torque. Sure, those numbers might seem modest now, but back then, they were exactly what the Gas 66 needed. The engine could last between 400,000 and 500,000 kilometers, or roughly 250,000 to 310,000 miles. That's a lot of mileage for a truck that carried heavy loads in environments tough enough to make you sweat and bleed. The Gas 66 didn't just look tough, it proved itself time and again. It was widely used by the military, forestry workers, and industrial crews. Decades later, many of these trucks are still running, which speaks volumes about the quality of their design and engineering. The ZIS 110, introduced in 1945, was what you'd call Soviet luxury. This limousine was reserved for the Soviet elite, including top officials and even Stalin himself. At its core was the ZIS 110 V8 engine, a solid piece of engineering designed to show the world that the USSR could compete with Western car makers. The engine was a 6.0-liter V8 that produced about 140 horsepower and 340 Newton-meters of torque. While it wasn't built for racing down highways, it was clear it was meant for smooth rides, like ferrying officials to state events or rolling up to ceremonies in style. Unlike the engines in Soviet trucks, which had to endure rough conditions, the ZIS 110's engine lived a relatively cushy life. But the Kamaz 740 V8 would be jealous. These cars were well-maintained and often driven in controlled environments. Because of that, the engine could last anywhere from 300,000 to 350,000 kilometers, although many were retired early since they served such specific roles. What's even more interesting is how versatile this engine turned out to be. During wartime, it was adapted for other uses, proving just how durable it really was. The ZIL 114, introduced in 1967, was designed for government officials and top-tier dignitaries. Its V8 engine delivered a blend of power and reliability that perfectly matched the car's prestige. This V8 engine was massive, 7.7 liters to be exact. It produced about 200 horsepower and 400 Newton-meters of torque. While those numbers might not seem jaw-dropping compared to today's vehicles, trust me, whether it was cruising through Moscow streets or driving across Russia's vast countryside, really, only a few vehicles could stand a chance. Now, it's pretty clear that if a vehicle is to carry the numero unos of the Soviet Union, it has to have durability at the very top of its list. The ZIL 114 V8 engine was built to handle just about anything, from brutal Russian winters to fuel that wasn't always the best quality. The solid construction and careful engineering also meant it could keep going for a long time, reaching up to 350 to 400,000 miles, which was a pretty impressive track record for a luxury car from that era. Although the ZIL 114 was retired in 1983, its engine left quite a legacy. It represented an era when reliability and craftsmanship were king, unlike today when speed seems to be the new king. The Gaz-24 Volga is one of those cars that stands out in Soviet automotive history. Known as a dependable mid-sized sedan, it was built to handle the rough roads and unpredictable conditions of the USSR. But did you know that during the 1970s, an experimental V8 version was developed? It's a bit of a hidden gem in the Volga's story, an attempt to give the classic model a pretty serious performance upgrade. This experimental V8 engine was a 5.5-liter powerhouse, producing around 150 horsepower. That's quite a boost from the standard inline-six engines most Volgas had. It gave the car better acceleration and a smoother ride, but also stuck to the gas tradition of building engines that were tough and simple to maintain. Reliability was front and center during its development. The V8 handled extreme temperatures and rough roads in testing, proving that it could perform just as well as it could survive. Unfortunately, this V8 version never made it to mass production, mainly due to economic constraints and the challenges of scaling up production for something more specialized. Despite this, it's still an interesting piece of history. It showed that even with tight budgets and utilitarian designs, there was room for a bit of ambition and experimentation. The Ural 375, introduced in the 1960s, was what we'd describe as a no-nonsense military truck. It was designed to handle some of the harshest conditions imaginable, and at the core of this beast was a tough, dependable 6.0-liter V8 engine. No need for luxury or speed, it was all raw power. The engine put out about 150 horsepower and 400 Newton-meters of torque. This was enough for its usual job of hauling heavy supplies, navigating rugged terrains, and starting up in the dead of winter. Events like the Siberian winters and muddy trails were no match for this engine. Durability was also a focus for the engine. With proper care, it could last anywhere from 500 to 600,000 kilometers. Plus, the design was simple and practical, so no need for a fancy workshop to fix it. Just grab a basic toolset and a bit of know-how for the engine and you're good to go. Although the Ural 375 truck was retired in the 1980s, the V8 engine is still remembered as a valuable piece of Soviet engineering. And honestly, it's not just a memory. Many of these trucks are still working hard today. showing that rugged simplicity really is the best approach sometimes. Built during the 1940s and 1950s, the ZIS-5 was a heavy-duty vehicle that played a key role in Soviet wartime logistics and post-war reconstruction. At the heart of this rugged machine was its reliable 5.0-liter V8 engine, which produced about 140 horsepower and 300 newton-meters of torque. One of the best things about this engine was how reliable it was over long distances. It wasn't the fastest or the most powerful, and really it didn't need to be. It had a simple, no-frills construction that made it easy to maintain and repair. Even at the extremes of temperature, the ZIS-5 engine was tough enough to keep going. Even though the ZIS-5 was later replaced by newer trucks, its engine proved to be quite the workhorse. With proper maintenance, it could go on for hundreds of thousands of kilometers, making it a trusted companion for those who relied on it. Rolled out in the 1960s, the GAZ-53A quickly became a go-to vehicle for both civilian and military work in the Soviet Union. But why? Well, let's allow its 5.5-liter V8 engine to speak for itself. The GAZ-53A V8 engine delivered somewhere around 150 horsepower and 350 newton-meters of torque. Nothing fancy, but it was built to stay. The design was all about durability. Whether it was hauling heavy loads across rugged, poorly maintained roads or braving extreme temperatures, the engine was a do-it-all. Its simple, sturdy build meant it needed very little maintenance and could withstand a lot of wear and tear without actually tearing apart. With regular care, this engine could run for 450 to 500,000 kilometers. Hence, no wonder why the vehicle stayed in service for more than 20 years, becoming a masterpiece in Soviet truck fleets. The GAZ-53A actually became a vital part of the Soviet economy and military, keeping supplies moving across huge distances. Its ability to withstand really tough conditions earned it a spot as one of the most trusted engines of its time. Finally, let's talk about the KAMAZ-7403 V8 engine. When it first hit the scene in the 1980s, this V8 quickly became a game-changer in the world of heavy-duty trucks, not just in the Soviet Union. With a hefty 11.0-liter displacement and cranking about 300 horsepower, the engine was more about reliability than power. Believe me when I say it was built to handle the toughest tasks, like hauling heavy loads over long distances and rough terrains. Interestingly, this was also what the KAMAZ-6460 truck was designed for. The KAMAZ-7403 V8 was pretty much engineered to work hard, and for a really long time. Freezing cold weather, scorching hot sun, endless hours on bumpy, rugged roads, just bring it on. When well-maintained, the KAMAZ-7403 could rack up an impressive 700 to 800,000 kilometers. That's not just remarkable for a truck engine, it's a major reason why so many of these trucks are still on the road today. But enough talk about toughness and reliability. The KAMAZ-7403 was also very fuel-efficient and easy to maintain, which made it a favorite among long-haul drivers and transport companies. Even decades after it was first introduced, the KAMAZ-6460 and its trusty 7403 engine continue to prove just how reliable they really are. Interestingly, while the Soviet Union is long gone, the KAMAZ-7403 is still alive and running strong. That's a wrap for today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on all our newest content. Catch you in the next one.